Yo, yo, yo. Hello and welcome back to the Lenko Show. This is episode number 93. We are sneaking up fast on that 100 episode. Today, I'm going to be running through why you shouldn't compare yourself to others. And this is something that has originated from a series of polls that I did on Instagram, which was actually quite well responded. There was quite a bit of interaction on that. I quite enjoyed that. Quite a lot of people voted on it. And this was the number one issue that people were having when it came to their psychological side of their performance or the psychological side of their game. So I'm going to break this down as to why you shouldn't do it, how you can maybe try and think about things slightly differently and adapt your thinking so that you don't fall into the trap of comparing yourself to other people and other athletes. And instead, you're able to take what you need and take what is useful and essentially separate the wheat from the chaff, break things down, get rid of the stuff that is harmful, not useful, not going to serve you in any way whatsoever, but still be able to observe someone's performance and then go, do you know what? I'm going to add that to my game, or I'm going to practice that. I'm going to try and work on that. So I'm going to break it down a little bit in terms of what it means, first of all, and then how you can start to use it differently and think about it differently. Anyway, before I do that, I just need to say that I have had an exceptional week this week. It's been incredible. Last Sunday, Man United were back to doing Man United things, and it makes such a difference to my mood. It's so weird. From years and years of sitting on the Stretford End, well, not sitting, standing in the Stretford End with my dad and watching United play week in, week out to an exceptionally high level. Some of the most incredible players to have ever played the game. Fortunate to watch them to then have to suffer in the way that we've suffered. And Man United fans, believe me, we have suffered over these past 12 years. So to get back to, well, I suppose other teams will look at this as like, well, you haven't really achieved anything, you haven't done anything, you certainly haven't won anything. Normally, I wouldn't celebrate winning a single game because it is relatively meaningless. But just in terms of the contrast from where it's been to the performance levels on Sunday, and the fact that we actually won a big game, even at a point where we looked down and out, we managed to still turn around the performance, get back on top, and well worth it. And to do it in the manner that we did it, oh, it still makes me smile. So I've been in an incredibly good mood. And another weird little thing that was a bit out of the blue this week as well is uh, we essentially closed the gym for a few hours on Wednesday afternoon due to some filming requests. And coming into the gym, we had Chris Hoy, who I think is I don't know, disclose any information I'm not allowed to disclose, but fuck it, it's just a TV advert. TV advert for NatWest, who are sponsoring the GB Olympic team. So we had Chris Hoy in the gym, and that was absolutely sick. The very interesting thing with that was that the crew had the gym from like 12 till 10 till 3, 10 till 3, and they started showing up from, I would say, from 8 o'clock. And they didn't really come in and get involved, but they definitely did start setting up things from, so like trying to do little bits from half 8 through 9, and eventually when they got everything up and running. And I don't know, I didn't know what to expect, but they had tons of equipment, tons of people, and all of this, like the 20 or 30 people that were there, they were all there for the sake of about 10 seconds worth of a TV advert. 10 seconds. And I did ask the question to one of the guys that was there as to how much that would actually cost for the sake of those 10 seconds. Unfortunately, I didn't get a figure, but I'm under the impression it was quite a lot. Quite a lot. So yeah, that was particularly interesting, quite enjoyable. Although it did mean that training had to take a bit of a adaptation. Managed to get a session in before they started. So And when it came to the training, did broke my training down into a couple of different things, but I suppose the main circuit side of it for this session, I did an underhand med ball toss. So get a very heavy med ball. I think it was about 20 kilos. Drop into a hang position, like you're doing a hang power clean, and throw it as high as you possibly can. Don't bother catching it, just let it land. It was six of those, then into some heavy weighted dips. I think I was hitting sets of 10 on that. And then followed that up with a 1 kilometer effort on the bike and some lying single leg raises where you lie flat on your back, shoulders off the floor. So you're in a bit of a hollow hold position. You squeeze one leg into the floor and then raise the other one up, which when it comes to kicking, punting, similar sort of position to the kind of position you get into when you're punting a ball as far as possible out of your hand. So um, you could argue sport specific, but I wasn't really doing it for the purpose of punting. I just wanted to feel my abs. So worked through that circuit. I think it was just rounds for time within 30 minutes. And that was after doing a series of hang power cleans and just a few of the little bits of power development before having kicking training later on that evening. And the other thing I've really struggled in training this week, purely because my legs were battered. I took the dog up a big ass hill on Tuesday, and we ran it. We basically ran it, and I think I might have shared my heart rate info or shared something from it earlier on in the week, and he just I was absolutely gassed. I was gone. There were points where I physically couldn't breathe while still trying to run, and I know it's bad. I know it's pretty severe when I can hear him breathing. He's probably one of the most chilled out dogs that just doesn't really stress himself, never appears stressed, exerted, never kind of sits there panting and struggling to breathe. And I could hear him breathing. So I know it was tough, like legs, quads, glutes, all of it just on fire in the trash for the next few days. And here we are. This is where I want to talk about why you shouldn't compare yourself to other people. Obviously, it's a fine balance because to say that you should never compare yourself to other people is tricky because you need role models, you need a pathway for development. And the way we can get to the top is by taking shortcuts, by observing what other people have done before. However, doing that requires a little bit of balance and zero obsession with other people. You need to kind of be able to take a glance, go, okay, like it, dissect, take away the information that you find useful, and then go again. It's like head coaches comparing win percentage and win records. You're taking teams from different levels, different parts of their development, different backgrounds, different competition. It's like I talked about football earlier on in the podcast here, but it's like comparing the Man United of the 1990s to the Man United that we're seeing now. It's not that you can't do it. It's just that it is just not useful to do it. Could you say, well, what were the qualities within the team that we liked or that I liked and should be carried forward? Could we adopt those? Yes. But should we compare win percentage? Should we compare individual players, transfer fees, etc.? Absolutely not. So you need to be smart in the way that you go about this. And I've written down quite a few key points. And I think the first thing that I want to kind of read to you, and I will wrap up with this as well, is a quote, which is stop fixating on what you're bad at and focus on what you're great at. Focus on your strengths, what makes you individually unique. Because the first thing on my notes here is that you like the reason you shouldn't compare yourself to other people is because you have a very unique pathway. You have a very unique set of abilities. You have a very unique previous experience that nobody else has access to. Like every single one of us as athletes, as human beings, is completely individual. You know, this is one of the things that pisses me off when we come to talking about minorities. Well, how far do you want to boil those minorities down? How many different categories do you want to put people into? Because if you go far enough, everyone is their own individual minority. The only reason that minorities exist is because we bulk people into bigger, broader fractions because it helps to simplify things. And it all gets very, very complicated. But anyway, understand you have a very unique combination of skills, talents, physical attributes, genetic makeup, training background, financial expenditure, training time, lifestyle commitments, like every single factor, nutrition, where you live, the weather, the temperature, the altitude. There are so many different factors that are going to affect your physical, mental development, your school background, not just the teachers that you were taught by, but the pupils that you interacted with, the other people in your class, like completely out of your control, but they are a factor. Having a group of mates that want to play football at lunchtime, how good are they? How much is that dragging you up a level? It is impossible to level the playing field across the board. Like, yes, you can provide opportunities, but can you level the playing field? Absolutely fucking not. And you probably shouldn't. There's a reason that universities are a melting pot for study and design and ingenuity and creativity. And that's what you need. Like, people need to be able to go into those brackets to fast track themselves. So just appreciate some of those individual differences. Maybe if you think about there is someone either on your team or on another team or as a professional that you're measuring yourself up against, and appreciate that their background is completely different to yours. Their set of circumstances are completely different to yours. And this is going to be one of my top tips for this, but we'll come back to this again and again and again. If you get caught in the trap of feeling a bit shit about comparisons with someone else, just look back at your own journey. Look at all the shit you've been through, all the things you've had to overcome. And again, we'll touch on this a lot more as we go on, but self-esteem, look at all the things that you've done, that you've achieved that were difficult, that you couldn't do to begin with, and appreciate the fact that you've overcome that and you've done that. A lot of this comparison stuff can lead to inaccurate assessment. Again, for the things that I've said there, you've got all these different unique aspects to your journey, your pathway to your development so far, your talents and abilities, genetics, all of it. And it can lead to very inaccurate assessment of your own abilities and your own progress. Like, you need to understand where you are on your own journey and not just go, well, this person achieved this by the age of 21. I'm 21 or I'm 20 now and I'm not even close. Well, how true is that? And how fair is it over the course of a career or a potential career? Are you doing yourself a disservice from doing that? Absolutely. So don't compare yourself to someone who's got different training backgrounds, resources, all of it. Ignore it. You need to look at aspects of their game. If you admire them, if you like them, if you feel like they are a competition, if you feel like they're a threat, have a look at what they do well. Study your competition. That's fine. Study your competition. What are their strengths? What are their weaknesses? Figure out a way to beat them. If all you're doing is lording over someone else who is, let's say, better than you, if that becomes a very fixed mindset, and that is one of my points later on, because these can lead to very negative emotions. They can lead to you experiencing envy, jealousy, insecurity, low self-esteem. You start seeing yourself as being worth less, not as an achiever or as someone who is determined and has great amount of strength and ability. And if you focus on other people's successes, if you see all the titles that they're winning, then that is going to overshadow your own achievements and your own self-worth. Appreciate the shit that you've got in your own trophy cabinet. Take a look at that once in a while. Appreciate what you've done, what you've won, what you've overcome. The next one is external validation. So this is ooh, this is a tough one because if you consistently seek validation or if you measure your self-worth based on how you stack up against someone else, that is going to lead to a very, very, very fragile sense of self-esteem because you are requiring, needy for kind of appreciation of others measured up to someone else. And again, we've already established that that can lead to inaccurate assessments and essentially a faulty perception of reality, which we don't want. That's no good to us. We want to be 100% honest with ourselves about our own strengths, abilities, weaknesses, areas for improvement, and ways that we can maximize ourselves. And comparing yourself and seeking that external validation from other people in comparison to even like other people is a terrible way to go, and it will 100% hinder your intrinsic motivation, which, by the way, the differences between intrinsic motivation, the desire to do something, versus the requirement for external validation and reward or extrinsic motivation, the comparison is absolutely ludicrous. So, for instance, you could offer someone like you could put X amount of money on the table and say, I want you to do this. And if the person doesn't really want to do it, typically it won't necessarily matter how much money is actually on the table. It's like when people call out footballers for, you're not running, you're not trying hard enough, you're not putting the effort in, like I've, shamefully done to Marcus Rashford, although I'd say that that was probably fair criticism at the time. And it, they'll say all those things and they'll go, you're getting paid X amount a week. How can you not do it? Like I would give anything to be in your position. And the fact of the matter is, the money on the table doesn't matter. It is not a factor. The amount that footballers are earning per week is not a factor. It is not going to motivate them and drive them. My wife, Fiona, she would love for footballers to be on performance pay. I'm not sure that having that threat looming over their head is going to be much of a motivator whatsoever. The motivation, the drive has to come from within because that is what is going to sustain you and keep you moving forwards long term. And it's going to get you away from the fix. All of this is trying to get you away from the fixed mindset and into the growth mindset. So if you believe that if you're comparing yourself with other people, you start to believe that your own abilities are fixed and they're static. You can't change them, you can't develop them. This person is better than you, which is why you're comparing yourself to them. And you develop that false hierarchy, shall we say? It might be perfectly true. If I'm comparing myself to, Novak Djokovic when it comes to tennis, I can fairly well understand that he is a better tennis player than me. That is, and I am perfectly fine with that. But would that be useful to me if I was to be competing with him? If I was a professional tennis player, that would not be useful because you form that hierarchy and that then stays fixed. You do not want to fix that hierarchy in place. You want to be thinking, well, how can I, if that is the order, if you do want to acknowledge that, you want to be thinking, well, how can I flip that? How can I turn this around? And the way to turn this around is to start getting creative, thinking about your game, thinking about your own growth and development, and getting back into the line of what can you control, what can you develop, and how can you get better and improve. So, and by doing that, you will increase your resilience, you'll increase your desire to take on challenges, overcome setbacks, and you'll stop seeing the flip side of that. You'll stop seeing challenges and setbacks as evidence of inferiority. You'll stop seeing that. You'll start to see it as an opportunity to get better and continue to improve and again overtake and move beyond the people that you might potentially be comparing yourself with. The next one, Distraction from goals. So if you're constantly looking around at other people, other athletes, and dictating a lot of time and energy towards doing those things, it is inevitably taking away time from yourself. You're inevitably going to be looking away from where you should be looking, which is your own areas of your own goals for a start, your own progress, which you've made already, the areas for improvement, and your overall focus. The vast majority of it needs to be on you and on your game. And I get really, really irritated when people come to me and go, "Oh, have you seen what so and so's done? Have you seen what this person's done? Have you seen what this kicker's doing?" And let's be honest, kicking in American football is one of the easiest comparisons ever because the stats are there, the information's there. It is all free reign. Have at it. Take what you want. Who's got the biggest kick? You can measure it. Very simple, very easy. Who's the most accurate kicker? You can measure it. Super simple, super easy. Is it any use for me to go and compare myself to Justin Tucker? Not really. Would it be like, would I look at Justin Tucker and look at what he does well and think, could I get more out of myself by doing this and adapting my practice that way? Can I start to experiment like I am doing at the minute? I am experimenting with my game, and I'm not just doing this off static stuff. I'm not just doing this. I'm not just doing this from static stuff. I'm not doing it just in basic drills. I'm doing this in those areas and in live drills with the team because it's going to take time to groove it in because I firmly believe that the changes I'm making are going to be positive changes and useful long term. So again, all of this comes down to you have to be focusing on yourself. You can look around and admire and take bits in, but do not get overwhelmed with the things that other people are doing and what they're achieving. See it, move on, ignore it, put it in the bin as quickly as you possibly can because it is irrelevant to you in the long term. It is absolutely irrelevant. And this, the next one, unhealthy competition. This is something for um, coaches, I suppose, to take note of because every team to be successful requires a level of competition within the team. You have to be pushing each other as teammates. You have to be holding each other accountable. You have to be, I would say, aggressive in fighting for your job, in fighting for your spot, in fighting for your role, and working hard to influence the team in the right direction. And this is something that uh, actually, in terms of leadership, I have been very critical of Bruno Fernandes, but something that he did really, really well at the weekend was just picking his teammates up. You could see it wasn't all about him. He was there to drag his boys through the mud and just be like, come on, let's keep fucking going. And that's the way it needs to be. But when this goes out of balance, when this gets out of whack, if you've got people within the team looking around at their teammates who are maybe getting more game time, maybe getting um, more preferential treatment. I don't really know how to dress that up, but might be getting more reps. They might be getting um, slightly looser in terms of slightly looser, less controlled, less like in terms of basic things like punctuality, showing up on time, being ready, attitude, performance. If you feel like you're getting a harder time than someone who is, in your eyes, slacking off a little bit, that can then start to lead to a lot of conflict and a lot of confrontation. So, and again, between the individual players, it can lead to resentment, rivalry, and then lack of collaboration, lack of information sharing, and lack of experimentation. And if you start to do that, if you start falling down that slippery slope, then you are going to massively restrict the growth and development of your team. So you've got to keep an eye on that. You've got to keep that in check and understand as a teammate, as a leader on a team, you need to be on the lookout and the watch for this and know that the primary goal every single time is the overall team goal. That is the most important thing that matters when it comes to winning. Now, this next one is quite a big one. This is a very severe one and quite serious when it comes to an issue that is at the pretty much the forefront of everyone's daily lives at the minute, which is the impact on mental health. And again, a lot of this is if you start to, or if you lose track of your focus and you start concerning yourself more with what other people are doing and how good they are, what they've achieved, you lose sight of what is in your locus of control and what you can influence and what you are actually responsible for. And like if you start to lose focus of that and you start to focus on things that you can't control, that can become very distressing in itself. And you can apply that to any aspect, any walk of life, anywhere in the world, at any time and place, wherever you want. That will always, always be true. If you are purely focused on things that you can't control, for instance, if you listen to the news constantly, you can't control half, like a time, you can't control any of that shit. Can you control what goes on in your own household, though? Yes. Can you control what goes on in your life day to day? To a degree, yes. There are always going to be external factors kicking in, but if you're voluntarily going out there and seeking comparisons and looking at things that if you're voluntarily looking at things that you know are outside of your area of responsibility and control, then it is going to continue to mount up and cause massive amounts of stress, anxiety, depression. And in respect to the way that we're talking about this, in terms of comparing yourself to another athlete, it is going to mount up and magnify tenfold when you are constantly comparing yourself to someone in categories where you fall short. If you always feel like not just like you're behind constantly, that can be demoralizing in itself. You need to like balance that with areas where you're looking at where am I ahead? Where am I better than this person? How am I better than this person? What am I doing that is better than this person? Am I working harder than this person? Am I working more efficiently than this person? Yes, yes, yes. Good. Keep doing it. That's it. Simple as that. If you're doing those things and then go, right, well, he's just performed that skill. I quite like that skill. It's quite innovative. I'm gonna copy it. Cool, copy it. Copy the method, copy the skill, add it to your game. If it's something that's going to make you better, do it. But don't get hung up on anything that they've done or achieved. For instance, like look at aspects of their game that you would like to add to your own. Again, you don't want to be getting to the situation, especially with mental stress, anxiety, overwhelm. You don't want to get yourself into the situation where you're leading yourself into burnout, where you're going to feel pressured constantly all the time to measure up to external standards. And this is something that is more and more and more prone to happen as you progress towards a professional level. There is no level where these comparisons are more intense and there's more of a spotlight than the very, very top. So be aware of that. And this is where, like, if you do get to that point, you need to kind of go into your own shell and just think, right, what am I aiming for week in, week out, game in, game out? What's the overall objective for the team? And how do I do my job for the team to the very best of my ability? That is all you need to look at. You don't need to look at what another centre forward has done for another team. It is irrelevant. They don't matter. They're playing a different game because the final one, like if because and you can very easily understand how all of this can map up to the final aspect, which is a loss of joy and passion, and having that. If you have that comparison driven mindset where you're comparing yourself to other people and you're thinking, gotta be them, gotta be them, gotta be them, that is very tiring, very wearing. and it will erode the joy and the passion and the excitement and the energy that initially pulled you into being able to like to play the sport and to do what you do. And to be like, if you look at people when they're playing at the very, very top of the game, they're fucking loving it because they're solely focused on what they're doing. Nothing else is relevant and nothing else matters. So again, I think I've said a few things probably repeatedly there. And if I have done that, then it's probably because I see it as being important. But you need to focus on what you can control. Yes, glance around at what other people are doing. What are they doing well? And take aspects of their game that you want to add to your own. As soon as you see something, close that page, push them away, ignore them, and work on the skill. If you're constantly looking around at other people with your head on a swivel, you're losing track of where you are and what you're doing. Focus on your own goals more than anything. The vast majority of your time needs to be spent focusing on you and looking at ways that you are going to get better and going to improve. And you know, in doing all of this, you need to have that driven mindset with that motivation coming from within, where you're getting the excitement, you're getting the energy, you feel enthused to be able to perform to your very, very best. If you can do those things, you've got a chance. You've got a chance. So don't compare yourself to other people. Focus on yourself, focus on what you can control, and enjoy doing the business. Stop fixating. I said it at the start. I'll say it again. I say. Stop fixating on what you're bad at and focus on what you're great at. That is it from me for this episode of the Lenko Show. That has concluded episode number 93. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you found it useful and I hope you've got some insightful tips and a way to actually overcome that adversity where you might be falling into the trap of going, oh shit, he's better than me. I'm going to get pushed out. I'm going to squeeze out. That actually, before I go, this is another thing. The consequences of having to compete with a new adversary, teammate, whoever, if you start to extrapolate that to, oh, I'm going to get booted out of the team. I'm not going to be the one that's playing. I'm not going to be the one that's performing. If you start thinking about the negative side of that, rather than looking at what you can do and what you can get better at, the more likely it is to become a reality. And also, the more distressing it's going to be. So, if you want to live a happy, healthy life, be confident, full of self-esteem, focus on things that you can control, focus on things that you're doing well, focus on things that you've done that were difficult and things that you've overcome, and take that with you. Keep going back to that, keep drawing on that experience and get it nailed. Anyway, if you've enjoyed this podcast, if you found it useful, if you found it found it exciting, I don't know how exciting you can find it, but if you found it enjoyable, please give us a rating, like it, share it, and make sure you come back for more. That is it from me. I'll speak to you again very, very soon. Lenko out.